Hi everyone, my name is Barbara Beckmann and I'm an artist here in New York. I am a portrait artist, but on the side I teach the sip and paint classes that are all over the place. So here's one of a beautiful sunflower, and I'm getting a lot of requests on my YouTube channel for these. So I thought, you know what, I'm painting one for a class, I might as well film it and show you how I do it. So I'm going to start out from the very beginning so I won't miss anything. So here's the palette that I chose. These are just paints from AC Moore. That's just what I'm choosing to paint these in. For my portraits, I use very high-end paint, but I don't want you to waste your money until you actually learn how to mix, learn how to play a little bit. So you can start off with these very, very inexpensive, cheap beginner paint. So this paint has great coverage. It's nice and creamy. It's very inexpensive. I think with a coupon, you could probably get these for about $6. I think they're about $12 without the coupon. So AC Moore has these. Again, they're beginners. It's great for adults and for kids. It is acrylic, so it will not wash out of your clothes if it dries on there. So just be careful and aware of that. So I use the yellow, and this is their bright red. And they have really just a limited palette. That's because with these sip and paint classes, they want you to mix. So it's a good place to start. So that was black. This is cobalt blue. And they're white. So limited palette, 5 colors, and we're going to mix and get that beautiful sunflower. So now that we have our palette good to go, I'm going to just tell you about my brushes pretty quickly. So here's a flat brush. It's a 3/4 inch flat brush, and I'm using a number 10 round brush as well. So these are the brushes that I actually teach my classes with. They're totally beat up. They're professional brushes. They were about maybe $15, $20 each. So that's what I supply everyone that I teach how to paint these, just because you want a good brush. So these brushes have been around for several years now. Hundreds of people have used them, literally. So they will last if you take care of them. I wash them out with just a little bit of dish soap and some water and make sure the paint's out of it and nice and dry. They are the best go-to brushes, and highly recommend those, especially when you're learning. These 2 brushes were the only brushes that I used for this entire painting. So when I teach my classes, I give everybody 2 plates. So one is your palette, has all your paints on top of it there, and the one underneath I use for mixing. Just makes it a little easier, and I like the foam plates. That just doesn't run. It feels good in your hands. It's easy to work with. They're just great, inexpensive dollar store foam plates if you're learning. You don't need any special palettes or something that's going to save your paint because it's so inexpensive. You don't need to really worry about that at this point. All right, so let's get started. So I'm taking the small brush and I put a little water on it and I mixed it with some black. And very lightly, I'm just going to kind of block in that center part of that sunflower. So it doesn't have to be perfect circles. See, notice mine is kind of just slapped on there quickly. It is definitely not perfect. Flowers are not perfect, and paintings are not perfect. Even the best paintings are not perfect. So I don't want you to stress about it. The more carefree you are, the better you're going to be. So all I'm doing now is going to be using on this mixing plate, I'm going to take some blue, some yellow, and some red, and I'm going to mix them together. I don't over mix either. I tend to do a lot of mixing right on my palette, but right now I'm looking for a dark color to kind of work for the center of this flower. So I'm going to start in the center first. I'm going to mix and add a bunch of different colors until I get the desired color that I'm looking for. So I went ahead, I made some like a dark purple, and then I added some more black, I added some more blue, until I got the desired dark color that I was looking for. So once I finished adding some reds and some yellows together, I got a dark color. I'm going to go in and I'm going to grab some black, and I'm going to put that right next to it because I know that I'm going to incorporate both of these colors together because that center needs to be pretty dark. Now it's not going to stay like this, it's just my first layer, so don't stress about this. Just make some nice dark color and you can go from there. So I'm adding a little bit of red to that black if you notice. That's because black is just so harsh. It's just so black, so I always kind of want to tone it down. And I always add some color to it. It could be blue, it could be red. You have to experiment and find a color that you like. So for this one, I did add a little bit of red. So very loosely and quickly, this is all done in the original time. I'm not speeding this up. This took maybe 40 minutes to paint from start to finish. So it's a very, very simple painting. Take your time. You can pause the video if you'd like to. It's a fun painting, but I can't stress more enough that you just need to have fun and relax. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding some colors on top of that black now, and I'm not really mixing them in. That you can see them in the painting. So if you look at the painting at the end or in the beginning of the video, you will see multi colors in that black center. So I just started with the dark, and then I'm adding some colors on top of it, but I'm not mixing them in. You can see them. I think it's just the lighting here in the video. That's why you really can't see them so vibrantly and bright there, but they are there. They're basically sitting on top of the layer that I put down that was the darkest, okay? All right, so give my brush a rinse out, and I'm going to use the same brush, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to block in the beautiful flowers. So the flowers are yellow primarily, and they have a lot of different colors at the base. There's going to be a lot of oranges, there's going to be a lot of red tones and some brown tones, and they're going to fade out to the very tips are going to be white. So they're going to have a transition. They're going to have like all these beautiful colors towards the base, and then they're going to go a little bit yellow and then a little bit white. So I'm going to show you exactly how I got that. So I use the chiseled edge of the brush, and I'm careful how far I go out, only because I have to put a quote somewhere on this painting. So if you want to put a quote, you have to keep in mind that you need to save room for it. So if you don't want a quote, obviously feel free to do what you want. So I did make these a little whimsical, and I kind of turned up the edges at the end, but you can do that last. So if you notice in the original painting that I did make it a little whimsical, and I kind of made some curly swirlies at the end, so I did that last. So don't stress about doing that now. Right now I'm just blocking in where I want the leaves to go. So I'm using some yellow and some white, and I'm mixing right on the canvas. And it's okay if I drag some of that brown in. If you notice, you will see the little streaks there. It's okay. I don't stress about it. I'm just blocking in the shapes at this point. I'm picking up some brown right from my plate, as well as dragging it in from that center. And again, I'm just moving along, not stressing about it. The only thing I'm kind of thinking about at this point is the width of the petals, making sure they're kind of all the same. The petals down at the bottom are going to go right off your canvas, so you're not going to see any of the blue background. They're going to be tight butted up together. So as long as I save a little bit, maybe of a little white streak, and you can see them there, I left them blank over there just to give my eye a place to separate them, but they're going to be yellow primarily at this point. So then I go back up and I start to work on the ones up at the top. So this one's going to curl a little bit. And again, if I curl it too much, or if I don't like the shape, or I want it bigger, let it dry, and when you go do the background, you can just paint over it. Sometimes people are scared to paint in their petals. Petals are very intimidating for a lot of people. So if that's the case with you, if you make a mistake, let it dry and just simply paint over and begin again. And if it's really bad, which I'm hoping it's not, you can just gesso it with gesso and start all over. But I don't think you're going to have to. Just have fun and just relax, and if you make mistakes, you can really fix anything. So the same thing applies to the top here. I'm just kind of going in my head saying, okay, how wide do these petals need to be? So I just want to try to keep them consistent, and these are going off the edge too. When I teach this class and I walk around, a lot of people leave these huge spaces up there as well. So there is no background showing, no blue. The white I'm leaving is just to identify the middle part of where the two petals meet. It's just for my own eye. At the end, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some browns and really almost outline them, but not too outliney. I'll explain that a little bit more later. So I'm just adding some yellow and some white, and if you can see the one of the petals, the one I'm working on now, is a little white. It's okay. Just I'm adding some more yellow to it. So just kind of squint at it and kind of see that they're all the same kind of hue. So I'm going to go right in with my dirty yellow brush, and I just grabbed some red on the corner of that. And I'm going to do all my mixing, like I said, right on my canvas. Some I'll do on the plate, and I'll explain when I'm doing that and why. But primarily, I took a tiny bit of that red. It's going to mix onto that canvas and mix with that yellow and create a beautiful orangey color. So I'm just going to pull that color out into that petal. I want it very streaky. Now see how I lost that little white edge that I had here to define the two petals on the very bottom? It's okay. I know they're there. I'll put them back in. Right now I'm just trying to pull that color very streaky straight out And it's okay to get that brown in there. Like I said, you want a lot of colors in this. You don't want it to be like a coloring book when you're a little kid and you color in your whole leaf or whatever you're working on one solid color. This painting has a lot of movement, has a lot of color. It's supposed to be happy. It's supposed to be a mixture of all the sunshine and everything that's around the area that's, you know, to the left, to the right, to the top of the sunflower, getting reflected onto those leaves. Plus, sunflowers, they are yellow. They do look yellow. But if you look closely, there's a lot of colors of the rainbow inside that petal and inside that middle as well. So that's what I'm doing. It's not, I'm not looking at anything. I don't have a reference photo. I'm just doing this from my head. And you can do this too. It's not hard. Just play and have fun. So if it gets too red or it gets too orangey, it's okay. Just add more yellow. Just give it a chance to dry just a tiny bit. It doesn't even need to dry all the way. So a lot of my mixing again is done right here on my canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to add in all the reds here and all the yellows until I have it pretty much symmetrical and the same throughout all the petals. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm going to make sure I get these sides. So this is a gallery wrapped canvas, but it's only 1/4 of an inch. This is a standard canvas, great for learning. I really love the ones that are like 1 inch or even 2 inches that are very dramatic, that you just use like a push pin and you can hang up on the wall. So you always want to make sure, if you're not framing it, to get those sides done as you go along. You can certainly mix the colors at the end if you forgot or if you've missed pieces, but I just find it really easy and quick to just go ahead as you're painting your petals or any color that you're using and just drag it over to the sides and around the edges there. So you see here I'm going back into those brown dark colors that I had still on my palette. They don't have to be perfectly matched. This one actually looks a little bit gray if you look at it from here, but at the end it all works out and it looks beautiful. So just keep in mind, do your tops, your bottoms, and your side along the way. Okay, so what I'm doing here now is I'm going to mix some of the blues for the background. So just as I was describing earlier, I don't want it to be a solid blue, one solid color. So I'm using this cobalt blue and I mixed it with a little white. And then I just grabbed some more and kind of let some of that white that I had in there mix. So I have pretty much, it's not straight out of the bottle, the one all the way up in the top there. It did have a tiny bit of white from my brush in it. So I have a cobalt blue. I have one that was mixed with white in the center. And then I'm going to add some red to get like a nice purpley color. So the background is going to have all these colors mixed into it. Now, if you change the background color and you're using orange or you're using purple, same thing. You want to use a variation of the color that you're using or that you're choosing. So I do go ahead very quickly. I mean, this is in real time, so see how fast it goes? I'm just kind of putting all these colors on. I'm grabbing all 3 colors, alternating whatever one I decide to grab. Very intuitive for me, but it might not be for you if you're starting out. So just really try to let your hair down, try to think outside the box, try to not have stress, and just try to remember what it's like when you're 5 years old to paint and you don't care what you're grabbing. That's when the paintings come out the best. And also, I tell people that I teach, if they're struggling, if they want everything so perfect, and I see them really, really struggling and going and outlining everything, I tell them to take their hand and slide it to the very back of that brush. You can see there's like almost like a teal part of the brush that I'm holding in my hand. Hold it way back there, and that's going to force you to have less control and not so perfect. Like you're going to really be forced to not have any control, really. You'll have a little bit. I'm only kidding, but you won't have that need to be so perfect and everything meticulous, because you want it to be carefree and very light, and you want all these colors to be seen. All the colors you want to get not mixed together. You want to see them kind of graduate into each other or blend nicely, okay? And if you notice, I make X's, little tiny X's when I paint, and that's just to kind of blend the two together where they meet, so I don't have any harsh edges. So I usually like to take the darkest of the paint and do those in my corners, and I feel that the dark edges and the dark corners will actually help draw my eye into the center of that flower. So you will notice that I always darken up my corners a little bit as I'm going along. So it was done very, very quickly. The background, It wasn't overmixed. You can see all those brush strokes, and that's what I wanted to do, and that was the goal. So the quicker you do that, the better I think you're going to be. Make sure you see all those different blues. You don't want it solid again. Just keep that in mind. Don't paint something solid. Even if you have those 3 different colors and they're totally different, which they should be, you want different values. Dark, medium, and a light. But when you apply them there, it's easy to get carried away and mix them together. So make sure when you're looking at it, you see all those darks, all the mediums. You want to see all 3 of those colors nicely. Okay? No harsh edges though. So if you're blocking in something with all dark blue, you have to kind of take a medium color or a light color and make those little X's where the 2 meet, and that'll help kind of fade them together. Okay? So that was pretty easy, right? I know you can do this. Okay, my next step is I want to go back in and take some of these orangey kind of colors and start pulling them out a little bit more into those petals. I already have some from the red that I mixed earlier, and as I was doing the background, they dried a little bit. So since I work so fast, they're definitely not completely dry, and I'll use that to my advantage because they will mix a tiny bit on the canvas, and that's what I'm looking for. There's a lot of streaky, a lot of little mixing that's done intentional, and just a lot of different colors in here. So what I'm doing is I'm mixing 3 different oranges. Now they're all going to be different. Mine's going to be different than yours. So I can't tell you, you know, I used a teaspoon of this, a tablespoon of that. It's just what your preference is, what you like the best, what's catching your eye for your sunflower. So I'm just using some red and some yellow and adding some white to get the lighter color, and I'm going to make a couple different versions. And I want some like dark bright red, not like fire engine red. It's going to have some of that orange in my brush because I mixed those 2 colors in there. And I'll add a little yellow, and I just play with it until I have 3, just like with the blue. I have 3 oranges that are the same kind of hue, but they'll all go together nicely. They were all made from the same paints, so they'll all work together. So I do 3, sometimes I do 4, sometimes I do 5, depends what mood I'm in. I just like to see a lot of different colors in there. So you just change them ever so slightly, as long as you have your light, your medium, and your dark. Okay, so I put the oranges away for just a minute, and what I'm going to do is I've decided to mix some other colors while the brush was dirty, and I could just have them on hands here. So I'm mixing these to also incorporate them in the middle of the center of the flower. So I want some like purpley colors, some different colors. Since all these were mixed with the primary colors, these are all going to work together. Since there's a lot of movement and a lot of colors in this painting, I can't go wrong. It really, with any color I come up with and mix, it's really going to work. Unless I make ugly, disgusting gray kind of mud, which is totally easy to do. And if you do, just rinse your brush out and mix other colors. It's as simple as that. I don't want this to be stressful. This is supposed to be a really relaxing, fun painting. So feel free to, if you are a sip and paint instructor, feel free to use this one. I don't care. I taught this one before. I change it up all the time. It's really fun. It's pretty easy to teach. I teach it in about 2 hours in a class time. Sometimes an hour and a half. It depends on the group, obviously. Some people ask a lot of questions. Other people have painted these before and they go quicker. So back to my palette here. I'm just mixing, as you can see. I'm just taking all these colors and kind of cross-pollinating. That's what I call it. Using them together to create beautiful tones and colors that will work with each other. Colors mixed, and I'm happy with that. I clean my brush out and I switch to the other brush, the skinny brush, the round brush, number 10. So what I'm doing now is just working on a little bit of the yellow in the middle there, because that's going to be where that bright color is. And I'm going to grab some white here and there, and I'm going to put the white on the very ends, okay? So it's going to have those reddish streaks towards the center. Then it's going to transition to a yellow in the center, and then in the center of the petal rather, and then white tips at the end. So I'm going to just make sure that I use a lot of these colors, and I'm going to go over and over a lot of different layers on top of each other, just so they look very streaky. It might be like the veins inside the petals. Petals are so delicate, and at the ends they're very translucent. You can see through them sometimes when the sun hits them. So that's why I want the ends to be nice and bright and white, because I'm sure the sun is hitting that beautiful sunflower. So that's what I'm doing now. So whites on the ends. I'll use a little bit of yellow here and there. And this is where I can also take the opportunity to turn it, the little edges there. But you have to be careful if you have your blue, if you're working quickly like I am, your blue might be wet. So you don't want to have any green on the ends there. So let it dry if it's not dry. Mine was dry enough to be able to add some of the little turns at the ends there. So I'm just going ahead, like I said, as I work through these petals, all different colors, constantly overlapping and layering. So you just want to make sure that where the brown in the center starts to meet the petal, you have all your reds and your oranges and your beautiful dark streaks. Then you want it to transition nicely into the yellow in the middle and then the white tips at the end. So that's really what I'm doing. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit so you can see it a little quicker. I don't want to take your time up all day. I know I like to watch videos and have them be a little quick when I watch them. So I'm going to just speed up this part here. So hang on 1 second. It up a little bit because I went over these petals a lot, quite a lot. So I didn't want to bore you here. So I'm using all the colors that I mixed, all those beautiful dark oranges and maybe some reds, the purples, just adding some streaks to those bottoms there, darkening things up. And if you notice, I am going into that center and I am pulling some of that brown. Not a big deal. You want to have that incorporated in it. I felt that it would look like it was really truly growing out of that center then. Plus, I'm going to come back a little later and I'm going to add some shadows and highlights onto that center. So anything I don't like will definitely be covered. But if you notice, I am going quickly in real time, but I'm just very light feather touch and I'm working fast and I'm just barely touching the top. It's almost like feathering, like a feather touch, if I could describe it any other way. So here's that orange that I mixed up, those 3 that I mixed up earlier. I added a little red to them just to deepen them up, so I want to see them, and I pull them straight up into that petal. Make it, you know, beautiful colors. You want to have lots of color. I can't stress that enough to you. So that's all I'm doing here at this point, and I'm just going to be making sure that my middles stay yellow, my ends stay white, and I have a lot of movement and streaks from the base of that brown center part out into my petals. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you. I'm going to speed up a little bit again and catch you up to how I end this thing. Okay, so while the video is still sped up a little bit, I don't want to make them too long, so that's why I'm doing that like this. I am mixing the brown colors that I had used for the center part. I still have them here. I mixed enough in the beginning. You can always mix more if you don't have them, so don't stress. It doesn't have to be the exact color either. So I'm just using this darkest color, and I'm just going to kind of define the shapes of the petals to make sure that they're separated, so you can actually see that maybe there are shadows where the two meet. So it'll identify where each petal starts. So I do it very, very quickly, same as I added in that orangey kind of colors and the red colors in the center. I'm going to pull out from the center just like I did with all the other colors. So this time I'm going to bring it a little bit down towards the tip of the petal there. So it's not really outlining. I don't like to call it outlining because when I say outlining, people tend to outline like you would see in a dark, a coloring book, all those dark black lines. And I don't use black straight, if you notice. I don't ever use black straight. I always cut it with something. When I paint my portraits, I paint for a living. That's what I actually do, is I'm a portrait artist. But I just love teaching these. These are so much fun. And this is kind of how I started and learned how to do portraits and stuff. But I never use black at all. But for these kind of sip and paint easy beginners, I do tend to use black. It just kind of helps people understand. So again, I'm using, once I put my streaks in, I go back in and I kind of just dab. I'm not painting, I'm dabbing. And I want to keep that circle not perfect. It's definitely not, it's a circle, but you can see it's not like a ball. It's not perfectly circled and outlined or anything. It's going to appear to have more texture in it. It's going to look more three-dimensional. And I'm adding every color that I used in those petals. I'm adding all of those in here. I'm going to do some reds and some blues, like the background color. I'll add some white. Every color that I used, I will dab into here and tap in. Just like if you've ever used stencils, it's like that tapping up and down. That's what I'm doing. So I'm not painting back and forth per se. So I just want it to look like it had a lot of texture. Maybe it was fuzzy in there. It kind of sticks up out of the petals, and it's that whole base, it's that whole like center where those petals grow from. So I wanted it to look definitely like there was a lot of things happening in there. And again, incorporate all the colors that you use in your entire painting. So that's what I just did there. So I'm going back and I took some of that blue from the background, which was still wet, and I added that in as well. This is cross-pollinating. That's what I call it. I don't know if there's a technical term. I like to incorporate all the colors of the rainbow, all the colors in my painting throughout the whole painting. I just think it adds a lot of interest and character to the piece. This one is a little bit whimsical, which I like. It's just a happy painting and it's vibrant. At the end here, I did add a quote. I had to try to find something online that I liked, so it took a little while to find something, but as soon as I read it, I was like, oh my god, that's it. I knew instantly. So you can add a quote or not to yours, but just have fun and use your imagination. Think outside the box. I encourage you to make it your own. You might not want to do a sunflower. Maybe you could do a daisy. You know, these can be any color. These could be a blue flower. This could be a purple flower. Whatever your heart imagines and desires, you can create. It does not have to be exactly like mine, okay? So don't stress about it. Just really have fun. So here it is. At the end here, I'm going to take my Posca pen, which is basically acrylic paint in pen form. And what I'm doing is just, I put a ruler down, but of course my painting was wet. And again, I'm not stressing about it. I don't really care that it's smudged. I can go back and fix anything. So I did lay it down. It did smudge. I was like, oh, well, whatever. And I just fixed it. So I just used the Posca pen to kind of roughly sketch in what I wanted to say and where I wanted to place it. And then it dries so quickly. It's really like a paint pen, but super quick drying. And what I did was I came back with this number 10 brush that we used throughout the whole painting, and I just kind of made it a little bit darker and a little bit thicker white, but at least I had the placement there. So that's what I did. So I'm going to go ahead up and I'm going to speed the rest of this up so you can see the final version. My writing here, I've decided to ditch that ruler. It was just in my way. So I thought it would be kind of neat that it wasn't straight anyway. So I wrote, I want to be like the sunflower, so that even on the darkest days, I will stand tall and find the sunlight. I thought it was really pretty. I thought it was, you know, inspirational and something that everybody can kind of relate to. So that's what I wrote here. Here's my smudge. See, don't panic. Even though, you know, I smudged it, I just used a little bit of water on a paper towel and I was able to wipe it off because it was dry enough by then. But if it wasn't and you lifted up some of your blue paint, don't worry about it. Just take your blue, you know how you mixed it to begin with. You use those 3 different colors. Just mix another version of it, something that's going to tie in and match. And that's why I like to do a background like that has all those colors in case I do make a mistake, in case I drop water on it or whatever it is. You can easily fix it. Acrylic is so forgiving. I really love it, especially when you're learning how to paint. So I hope you try this. I hope you, you know, have fun and enjoy. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me a message. You can look for me on Facebook. It's Barbara Beckmann. It's spelled with 2 N's. A lot of people can't find me if they don't spell it with 2 N's. So it's Barbara Beckmann, Beckmann art. And I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. You can find my art page on Facebook. I usually don't answer when it's like my personal. So send me a message through my business, Barbara Beckmann Art. Or you can leave a comment down here. I get them also. So sometimes I don't respond to them as quickly just because I miss them for some reason. But I do get them eventually. So you can email me, barbarabeckmannart@gmail.com. Everything that you need to know to find me or whatever, I'll list below so you can click on the link. So I'll also put a list of supplies and where you can get them, where you can get the Posca pen that I'm using, or that I used to put this down originally. I guess that's it. I don't want to leave anything out, but that's it. That's the end. And I hope you really give it a try. Think outside the box. Have fun. Let your hair down. Take your time. You don't have to paint this in a half an hour like I do. So enjoy the process. It's a learning experience, especially if you're starting out, but it's a great one to do just to get familiar with the paint and feel what it feels like in your hands. And yeah, have a great day, everybody. Have a good time painting. Happy painting. I hope you come back and watch my videos, my other videos. And please subscribe if you haven't. I'll put a link to that below as well. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. Bye now.